Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I am Tom Curry. I'm running for Congress. Back in February when I first announced my candidacy, I was planning on running a race against Congressman John Linder. People ask me all the time, why were we going to do that? Well, the first thing is real simple. 18 years in Washington is too long. I believe it is time we get back to a citizen legislature that our founding fathers envisioned and implement term limits, and if we can't get it passed in law, abide by them by ourselves, because that's what we say we're going to do, and we've got to live up to our word. The other reason I really got into it, because I'm tired of politics as usual. And I think we've seen, not only in this current administration, but for the last 20 years, both parties raising our taxes, spending money, government growth that's not being controlled, and we've got to do something about it. We've got our Constitution being stomped on. We've got to get back to the powers and the limits that the Founding Fathers put in the Constitution and balance the budget, implement some fiscal responsibility, and we've got to implement the fair tax. Thank you.
Next we'll have Tom Parrott.
Thank you. My name is Tom Parrott. I'm a neighbor right here in PeachTree Corners. I live a half a mile that way. Many of you I know personally. I'm real concerned about this country in many ways. We have financial problems, but our biggest problem is just maintaining our sovereignty as a country. Every day you look at the news, you see we're going to international courts. The president's trying to give our laws over to the United Nations, and it just is something that's totally wrong. We have problems, like I said, financially, but if we don't have a country, what's the use of fixing them? I'm all about term limits. This is supposed to be a guardian position, is you hire a representative to guard you from that federal government. And I'm the guy that sees that, and I'm the guy that will not put up with it anymore. I'm going to personally make a vow to you that I'm going to term limit myself to 4 years. And that's something that, you know, you say you need a law to do it. Well, I just made the bill and I voted on it, and it's my bill, that I'm not going to spend over 4 years in Congress.
Thank you. Next we have Rob Woodall.
Good evening. Thank you all for staying late to hear from us tonight. A lot of us raced over from a barbecue out in Walton County to be here, and very much appreciate you all staying to be here also. My name is Rob Woodall. I have worked for you for the last 10 years as Congressman Linder's Chief of Staff. When you made that call, when you needed that help, it was our office that you were calling. It's been my pleasure to serve you during that period of time. I could not be more proud that Congressman Linder made the decision for himself that it was time for him to come back home, for him to retire. It didn't take a scandal. It didn't take an act of Congress. It didn't take anything at all except him looking deep down inside and making that decision for himself. But the challenges that he was facing and that we are all facing are important challenges, and they're not easy answers. Not easy answers, not easy problems. I have 10 years of working for you along those lines, and tonight I'm here to offer you for the next 2 years to go back to Washington and work for you one more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to questions. Is this working? No? I'll stand up and talk loudly. The first question will be for Rob Woodall. I'm going to face this way, so I'll turn back if you can't hear it. In 2008, the Republicans seemed to favor more drilling with somewhat less oil drilling with somewhat less government regulation. In light of the current situation in the Gulf, what are your thoughts about this?
I've always been a drill here, drill now person. Those views have not changed at all. Now, for me, it's never been a federal decision. It's always been, let's open up those areas and let the state of Georgia decide. The state of Georgia wants to drill off the coast. Let's let the state of Florida decide. The state of Florida wants to drill off the coast. And let's let the state of Alaska decide if the state of Alaska wants to drill in its northern regions. You know, the problems that we are seeing in the Gulf are not a problem of lack of regulation. You know, the articles that you'll read about that ongoing spill is not that things were not regulated. It's that there were in fact regulations, and those regulations were not enforced. Whether it's drilling in the Gulf or any other aspect of federal regulation that we're going to be talking about, you will never hear from me that what we need is more federal regulation. You will either hear we need less regulation, or more often we simply need to enforce the regulations that we have. Please don't let folks use this terrible accident in the Gulf as an excuse to come and re-regulate one more time.
Next we'll go to Tom Parrott. Again, the question is, it seems the Republicans had supported kind of a more drilling policy with less government regulation. A lot of the current situation in the Gulf, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, with everything that we do in society, there's an element of risk to it. Driving here tonight had risk into it. So I believe it's a matter of managing those risks. We have a nation that imports about 80% of the oil that they use, and we have to do something. As far as drilling in the Gulf, we're presently drilling in the Gulf. If you go down, not we, but the Chinese are drilling in the Gulf and the Florida Straits. If they've ever had a blowdown there, and you had to deal with a foreign government such as Cuba or China, you'd be grateful to have BP, and you'd be grateful to have the federal government monitoring that. So, like I said, there's risks to everything. We need to mitigate it. It's been a long time since we had one, and it's terrible. But like anything else, it's managing the risk, in my opinion.
Again, the question is, with the Republicans have supported generally a policy of more oil drilling with less government regulation. In light of the oil spill in the Gulf, the current situation, what are your thoughts?
Well, thank you. When you look at the oil drilling problem right now, start with, it's a matter of national security. We've got to cut our dependence on foreign oil, and we've got to cut it sooner rather than later. It's a matter of national security. We cannot be held hostage by dictators and countries that have ill will towards the United States that are controlling our oil supply and making us that we've been dependent on for so many years. So I'm certainly in favor of drilling. You look at the disaster that happened in the Gulf, and it isn't about regulation and adding more regulation. One of the articles they've already quoted as saying that there's at least 8 fail-safes that failed. That tells me as a safety manager for a major corporation, people weren't doing their job and they weren't doing the inspections that they're supposed to be doing. They were either pencil whipping them at their desk or just ignoring them altogether. It's not about additional regulations, it's about doing the things we're supposed to be doing, follow the regulations we have, and it's important that we drill in the Gulf, and we drill in Anwar, and we have a comprehensive energy policy. It's a matter of our national security. Thank you.
Test, test. Now, does everybody have a question memorized? I won't repeat it, and we'll just turn this one over to Jody if he wants to ask it.
All right, thank you. There's no question that what's happened in the Gulf is a tragedy. It's a tragedy in terms of loss of life. It's a tragedy as well environmentally. But in spite of that, we cannot afford to have an emotional response at this point, and because of this tragedy, to turn away from drilling. I believe strongly in drill here, drill now. It's American energy, it's American jobs, and we need to continue forward. Over 1,000 drill rigs out there, and this is one event. However, this is, to me, to drill now, it ought to be an economic imperative because of where we are now as our nation economically. We cannot afford not to recognize the importance of this economically. It is also a vast national security issue. There is no reason for us to be getting oil from countries that hate us. We must continue forth with our drilling, exploration, and drilling.